rest of the student movement are leading, you shall see workers there, because issues are being raised about workers too, issues of privatization that seems to be so hegemonic in the workplaces, in the universities. Issues of outsourcing are coming out quite sharply. So there's a clear blending between the workers and the students. These fees are too much. We all do agree. We agree that instead of just pointing a finger to anybody, we should just solve this problem. We do appreciate that universities and vice chancellors in particular have a responsibility on this matter. It's not just a government problem. They have a huge responsibility to respond to these challenges. They cannot behave as if it's just the government that must respond, or it is just the ANC that must respond. Remember, this is enshrined in our the ANC's 52nd conference that talks about free education, quality education, and we are going to be working with the students, with the youth movement in our country, and everybody who is concerned about the plight of our youth. And I think I should just stop at that point. We had a very progressive, productive meeting.
Thank you very much, Comrade Keith. Good evening, members of the Fourth Estate. Good evening. Don't be like people from across the Atlantic who do not appreciate greetings. In Africa, we greet. Talking about our long day session on this matter of students at universities. We, in principle, reached very good discussion with our Progressive Youth Alliance structures, and firstly appreciated that the program derived from within the framework of our policy framework of the movement as a whole. From the beginning, the student, as we have seen also in the different protests, they appreciate the Freedom Charter as the basis, but they also appreciate the ANC 52nd National Conference decision. So they are not moving from outside the sphere of ANC posture on transformation of higher education. So from that perspective, I think the Alliance leadership was happy with the briefing because the PYA has led this very important struggle, which from across the Alliance, different statements were issued expressing solidarity and the fact that the cause and the call was legitimate and fair. Just want to emphasize one singular point that perhaps will become a major issue going forward, which I think that the media should also respond to, is this question of institutional autonomy and what's happening in those institutions that are funded by the state in the main, and also the disparities between these institutions and how they are able to respond to the needs of students. From part of the discussion we have had with the student, for instance, you'll realize that Walter Sisulu University, for instance, would have 1% private funding, and Wits University will have 45% private funding of its overall budget. Wits University, for instance, will have reserves. Walter Sisulu may not have that. But when a matter like this happens, the Wits University, instead of responding effectively even through its reserves to accommodate more students. It points a blame to government. And also the fact that most of these universities, some of them, uses government intervention almost up to 40% as part of income of the university. And I think it's important that the movement has also appreciated that we can no longer allow a situation where education is so deeply commodified at university level that it now disadvantages particularly children of the working class. So in brief, I think I can end there so that the SG can take more time. But we are happy that the Alliance overall was able to give enough time and attention to this matter. And hopefully, as time goes on, we hope that society in general will continuously deeply appreciate the challenges that we face and work with us as part of the common solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We did talk to some of you earlier in the day. Present in the meeting with the Alliance was COSAS, SASCO, YCL, and ANC Youth League. Because sometimes when we talk of the Progressive Youth Alliance, we overlook to mention them. It's COSAS, SASCO, YCL, and ANC Youth League. They tabled the issues to us. Among the issues, I want to highlight 4. 1, 0 increase in fees, 2016. Look into the autonomy of the institutions of higher learning. 3, look into the possibility of capping the earnings of university executives. 4 is looking into how can we in the long term achieve the free education as resolved in the 52nd National Conference of the ANC. So those are the 4 issues that they put to us. We listen to them. We'll relay the message to our comrades deployed in government. Particularly, this is important in view of the meeting that is going to be held tomorrow. One thing that we have clarified was that actually we don't instruct comrades deployed in government. We'll communicate the message, they must look into it, and it will help them in preparation for tomorrow's meeting. We will be communicating this tonight. The question of the police conduct was another issue that we had to look into, where there is rough handling of the peaceful protesters, that should be condemned. Where police worked properly and managed the protest, that should be commended, because one of the risks that we're having is to go to the extreme and just condemn the police, because there is one incident when there are actually 20 marches. For example, 17 universities out of 26 are involved in this program. But if you look into incidents that we normally look into, is in the few isolated cases where we put an emphasis that police are handling the situation badly. But where they have handled it bad, we hardly commend them. I think we should do both. The disciplined way that students have conducted the program is quite appreciated. The march that came to Luthuli House, you will notice that when we had the students on the way to Luthuli House, we brought a platform, loud hailer, everything, so that when they're here, they must find us ready for them. And I can tell you that people were having reservations. Should we allow them? So we said, no, allow students. We're here. We'll go and collect them at the memorandum. What is the problem? What is the big deal? They came. And here, there was a contest whether we should stay on top of the truck. Wanted to resist that. Then after big negotiation, I won't accuse anybody where to come down. When we arrived there, then there was another demand that we must sit down on the floor. Then we had to resist that so that there must be a balance between complying and being humiliated. Those are two different things. So we resisted sitting down, we couldn't sit down. But you'll notice that they said they're giving us the memorandum. If we want to talk to them, we'll have to invite them. That is what we're going to do. We're not going to invite them. We're going to invite ourselves in the campus to give feedback on the memorandum. That's what we're going to do. What is in the memorandum is not different to what was raised in the POA meeting. We're wishing the tomorrow's meeting all the success, and we're hoping that the engagement will take us forward. Transformation is not an easy destination. It's a long journey with problems, and we must be able and be prepared to travel it together. And that traveling of that journey of transformation means engaging, talking all the time. One of the things that we must overcome in South Africa, TSG, is this question of feeling that once there's an issue that is burning, it is the end of the world. There will be an issue of education today, there will be another issue of health next year, there will be another issue of housing that other year. We must always be prepared to engage when these things emerge. Sometimes we tend to be very almost ultimate. This is the ultimate demand, and therefore that's the issue. I can tell you that what is happening now is not the ultimate demand. There will be still many other issues that will come. That is the nature of the journey we are in. And as the ANC and the Alliance, we are quite patient with that journey. We're going to travel that journey with the people of South Africa. Thank you very much.
We'll take questions if there are any, starting with Kanita. We'll take 1, 2, 3 questions. In that 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I just wanted to find out a few things. Firstly, did anyone in the meeting raise the call for Minister Blade and Zimande to resign/retire or be redeployed? Did the YCL, I don't know if Mr. Mapala or anyone can answer, did the YCL raise their concern that they issued in a statement earlier today that the ANC Youth League president should be subjected to a DC because of the utterances that he made? That's the second question. The third question is, we still don't understand what the resolution or the solution proposed or the decision of the meeting is. So is it going to just be further engagement, or there won't be an increase? Or if you just, if there was any tangible solutions, if you could perhaps communicate that. Thank you very much.
Natasha.
Natasha from the Business Day. Just 2 questions. SG, you said that you will be going to, you're going to be inviting yourselves to campuses to give feedback. When will you were invited? Okay. When will you be doing that? And will you have? Do you think that you will have tangible, something tangible to hand back to students? The second question is for Solly. The SACP in Gauteng today released a statement talking about a moratorium on fee hikes. Is that a position that the SACP at national level supports? Thank you.
Behind you. Behind you.
My name is Shirley. I'm from Media 24 for Netwerk 24. I'd like to know the past week's happenings on campuses and at Parliament. Does that make the ANC worried or nervous about next year's elections? And then also, the SG, you didn't have a chance to talk this afternoon. They didn't give you a chance to talk. Are you angry about that? Would you have liked to say anything to them? And if you could, what would you say? Thank you.
ENCA.
SGN Alliance Partners, good afternoon. One of your proposals is the capping of salaries for senior staff at universities, is what I understand it to be. Just seeing the reaction when you first mentioned this in your first press briefing this afternoon, many people in the public are talking on social media about what about the salaries at state-owned enterprises or at businesses that government has direct control over? Why is there not a move to cap those salaries? For example, Hladi Motsoeneng at SABC earned more than many of the vice-chancellors whose salaries have now become public. Secondly, how do you want this to end now? You've met as the Tripartite Alliance. The President is meeting with students tomorrow. What's your message to students now? We've heard you, go back to school, or how do you want this to end? And last but not least, you said that there must be a balance between complying and being humiliated. You're suggesting that all the vice-chancellors that sat down were humiliated?
Okay, we'll start on my left, if anyone has any take-up.
On Friday, we had a lengthy discussion with the DSG of the ANC, trying to help the situation at VETS, just so that you know. So it's not that because we're having a meeting, the situation, we're only starting to attend to the matters now. We've been involved in trying to resolve the problems. The Vice-Chancellor at VETS, invariably, the media reported that he was taken hostage. So while he thought he was in a meeting, he was actually under hostage. So it's a different situation. So it's not comparable to our situation here. I think the one on moratorium on fees, this on hikes, this was also a call by the students, the PYA. In fact, the essence of their call for zero fee increment for 2016 is essentially a moratorium, not to increase the fees. So it's the same thing what our comrades in Gauteng would have necessarily said. Of course, as I indicated earlier on, there were many issues of structural nature about our higher education institution and perhaps what we need to do. For instance, this element that we have raised or was raised and we have debated sharply about what does institutional autonomy, academic freedom mean? And the two are different. What does an independent institution funded by the state respond to a state mandate for free education? And also because in general terms, these issues are largely academic for the working class people on the streets who want to access university education or professionalship. So they don't worry much about academic freedom and so forth. But what they worry about is that their government that they elected had promised them a progressive introduction of free higher education. And that's what they want to enjoy. But if the manner in which the institutions, in our arm's length approach, respecting the notion of institutional autonomy and academic freedom and so forth, they then themselves run down the capacity for us as a revolution to meet our obligation, that also creates a problem. But that problem is not an individual problem. It should not be a problem of Blade. Blade doesn't have money to fund higher education. Even as a minister, the ministers are allocated budgets, and budgets controlled by the collective of the state. That is why the matter is a matter of the state. That is why even ourselves in our discussion having finalized that the ultimate implementers of what we may discuss should be discussed further with our comrades deployed in the state, it's subject to further engagement. And I think that the ANC, as SG has indicated, they will go and engage with this matter with our comrades deployed in government, and in that process will then respond sufficiently to the matter that we've raised. No one in the meeting, as far as I remember, well, we did go out to the march. The DSG remained chairing the meeting. By the time we left and came back, there was no call from anybody to ask Comrade Blade to resign. By the way, it might be important to respond to this mischievous call, because this mischievous call may have a particular foundation that if we are not careful, it may be attractive now for the populist. The populists are those that want to hear their voice and have no solution at hand. The populists may come out and say, let's get this thing, remove Blade, and then you have solved the problem. But you remove Blade, you still remain with the same architecture. You still remain with the same problem. So the issue is the systematic response to the problem as a whole without individualizing the whole issue. But also that if you allow this notion to continue, it then can go to other areas. For instance, we've seen many other hashtags that have, because I'm now told that we are led by the hashtags. There's a new hashtag, this and that, hashtag this and that. Our revolution cannot be gambled on the hashtag mentality. It will continue to assess objective condition, respond sufficiently in line with its policies and its capacity, but largely dependent on mobilization of our people to understand the problems of the day and collectively to work together to resolve them. Thank you.
As usual, the SG will deal with the difficult ones. Look, I will pick on one question from Nicholas, the last one. Humiliation or complying, and say that we had to attend to quite a disciplined march of the students outside here who came to the ANC and its alliance to want to hear how they are solving the problem. Of course, it's a march of students. It wasn't a march of a political party or one political party. It's students, and we're coming there to listen to them. They come from different quarters and angles of our society. You will be surprised that when the call for us to be sitting down with them where there was not even any space to sit, it was other students who also intervened and said no, but the leadership can take the memorandum commands and say, let the SG listen to the memorandum and go and not address. So it deals with the whole notion of the demand to sit down and the matter dies. Can he then say he's angry? I'm not going to be his spokesperson, but for sure that issue was an issue where, as the leadership ourselves, we were saying we're not going to do that, not out of disrespect of the students, but out of the respect of the movement itself, the ANC. We're not going to do it. We're not going to compare ourselves with the vice chancellors who would have then done that out of their choice also, I would say so. But we can't be angry when students are saying, let's sit down. We'll simply say, no, we don't do that for a reason, and a good reason indeed. The last thing I want to also take the SG has already said that there shall be many issues going forward, and what is clear is that the alliance, the ANC, has got to be responding, not because there is a concern about losing an election or not. An organization must go and respond and listen to the issues that are being raised by society, and let's be allowed to do that, and do it effectively, as if there is no election tomorrow. We must respond because we are a responsive organization. They themselves says, ANC come, we want the ANC that listens to us. That's what they were saying outside, which is okay, and we're doing exactly that. We shall do so whether elections are there or not. Reality is that this was quite an important episode, taking forward the revolution of the students about education in our country. It's a very serious matter. Leaders have stood up to listen. The president is listening to them tomorrow, and definitely solutions are going to become there. Organizations have listened.
If it was not journalist, I would ask you to sing. But I can't do that now. I'm sure that will be a headline. Mandasha asking journalists to sing. Yeah? Hashtag Gwetwe must sing. We met the PYA, and when the organization I left, that was also, there was the Women's League. It joined us in the meeting. We had a very fruitful discussion and developed an understanding. That's why we say we are going to communicate that, the discussions, to our comrades in government. That will include ministers and maybe the president if you find him tonight. That's what is going to happen. Because one of the things that we don't want to do is to have parallel process of taking decisions. That we take decisions in Luthuli House, and the actual question of funding of higher education is a responsibility of government. We can communicate the discussions and what came out of the meeting to those responsible in government. And decisions, hopefully, may come after tomorrow's meeting between the president, the vice chancellors, chairs of councils, SRCs, and student organizations. Well, if there is a decision there, it will be easy to take a decision when we will visit the campus, because there will be a decision that we can communicate, even if it means duplicating that communication between SRCs and ourselves. Because Mkabo said the ANC is not, SG is not going to be given a chance to talk. If he wants, he will call us. Then once we have answers to a number of these questions, we'll call them and actually save them the walking a long distance by us going there and telling them. And I want you to appreciate the fact that the march on Luthuli House was not, there was no notice of a march to Luthuli House. Nobody came to us and said, this is the route, we're coming to you. There was nothing. But once we had that, students are leaving, UJ and vets are coming to Luthuli House. We said, get our truck, get our loud hailers there, so that the student must be able to talk to us. And to me, I think that was an expression of respect to the action. When we came out again, we said, they have arrived, let's go and get that memorandum. When 3 of us were there, again, that's another sign of respect that we go there. And the point we're making is that It's a different matter when you come there, you say we sit down. Maybe if there were traditional mats, amagans, would have sat down. But to say to us, sit on the ground, sit on the floor, it goes beyond the actual requirements of us expressing our respect for the students. That's why I'm saying we'll go back there, give them the answers. Number two, are we nervous about a march on Parliament? Let me repeat the answer I normally give when people ask us about nervousness. The answer is not driven by nervousness. That is not what drives the ANC. It's not nervousness. It's appreciating that there's an issue on the table and therefore we must deal with it. So it's not a question of being nervous. And I know people, when people march, everybody commented that, yeah, ANC kunzima, ANC kunzima, ANC kunzima. They all say so. The reality of the matter is that the ANC is a governing party. People will march on the ANC and the ANC must be responsive and the ANC must listen to them. That's it. The worst thing that would happen is when people march on us, we lock ourselves in the offices and move to higher floors instead of going and receive the memorandum. So we're not nervous. We're not nervous yesterday. We're not nervous. Actually, we have called on ANC members to join the march tomorrow on Union Building. That go there, join that march because it should not be left to be a march that is seen to be against the ANC, because it is not. It is a march in support of the issues raised by the students. Therefore, members of the ANC must join that march and be part of it, support the student in a struggle that we think, let me use the words I used in the morning, in issues they raise that are reasonable and understandable. Obviously, no working person can afford fees that are north of 100,000 rand per annum. It's difficult, it's totally making it inaccessible. And the question of increase of these fees is also limiting the capacity of the state to fund more students. That's the issue. And therefore, I think we have an obligation to appreciate the struggle of the student, because that struggle is genuine. And I can also confess here that when we're discussing that, many people came up who are parents. One having 2 kids in university, one is having one is going to start next year and so forth. And we discovered that, hey, this thing is cutting very close to us. We're also conflicted on this matter. So sometimes people assume that we're cushioned from society. And the reality is that when kids must go to university, whether Jesse is a DST of the ANC, that kid must go to the university and she must pay. And that's it. So we're part of society. We happen to have chosen to be to follow political calling rather than doing another professional calling. But the impact of what happens in society impacts on all of us. So that's why we say the demands of those students are reasonable and they are understandable, because we're not corresponding them, we're not researching them, we experience them. Now, was I angry about not talking to the march? No, it's not my march. They were marching to me. I didn't attend a rally as an invited guest speaker. They marched and they delivered them. And they said, no, we're not giving you the right. It's their right. They're delivering a memorandum. We received the memorandum. We have got the copy. That's why we say we'll go back and respond to them. Though in the memorandum itself, there is no demand that is normal. That says we give you 7 days to respond. We don't have that in that memorandum. They just said these are the issues. And therefore, verbally said, when the SG want to talk to us, he will call us. And that is exactly what we're going to do. So there's no reason for anger there. I was not deprived of a platform to address a rally of my own. I went there to receive a memorandum. I signed for it. I received it. That's the issue. capping of salaries of vice chancellors. What about other public entities? Normal cited example would be SABC. I don't know if you have noticed that a number of vice chancellors earn more than the CEO of SABC. Yes, a number of those vice chancellors earn more than the CEO of SABC, who is always chased about too much money and so forth. It's fine. But the reality of the matter is, even on public entities, the question of earning of executives is an issue that should be looked into. Even the earnings of executives in the private sector is something to be looked into. I can tell you, in some media houses, what CEOs earn and what journalists earn, the gap is just too huge. I won't cite any media house. I won't cite any media. So this is an issue that we should talk to unashamedly, and not make it just vice chancellors. It's an issue that should be looked upon across the board. The question of the message. What is the message? The message, I said, is that there is a call to make education accessible. For example, let me tell you, many people, when they talk of free education, they talk of free education as if they have made a discovery. The ANC made that commitment in the 52nd National Conference. And we have been trying to eat the elephant in small pieces to achieve it. That's why if you look into what we have done, PhD, master's research funded by the state. Third year, NSFAS beneficiaries is a grant. FET College, funded by NSFAS, is a grant. We're eating the elephant in small pieces. So people must not call for commitment. Commitment is there. We made it in the 57th National Conference. We've been trying to implement it. But when you deal with things that cost money, you always say resources permitting. And if the increase of fees continues all the time, every time you increase fees by 10%, you reduce the capacity of NSFAS to fund more students by 10%. Simple. So that is the issue. So our commitment to free education should not be put in doubt. It should not be questioned. We have made it public without any pressure. When we met in Polokwane in 2007, there was no strike in any university. We took that decision because we think that in the long term, it is the right thing to do. So that commitment stands. Resources permitting, would have achieved it 3 years ago. That's where we are. So when students make the demands that are in line with our resolutions, I don't think we need to be nervous and feel like we're being pushed. It's our resolutions. What we should have in the engagement is to find formulas of funding this. For example, one person in the meeting made a very important point. Said, listen, man, we should begin to look into what do we prioritize. We subsidize sectors of the industry, automotive industry. We subsidize it. Why can't we take that money and put it to education? Because those companies make profit. They run trade. They are doing business. And we can look into any other areas in the budget and begin to accelerate the process towards free education, which we resolved on in the 52nd National Conference of the ANC. Thank you very much for all your questions.
I suppose there is no any other question given it. Is that also clarification on the
We're a governing party. If we would be worried every time people come to us and raise issues, we are not worth being a ruling party. A ruling party must be able to listen and be responsive to issues. That's all that is required. So it's not a question of can there be a strike in the middle of can there be an election in the middle of a strike? It's a different matter. We must deal with the issues. We must not deal with the issues because there are elections. There are elections in this country every 2.5 years. Otherwise, if we will do things because there are elections, hey, I can tell you that there would be no program of governance. Because after every 2.5 years, there are elections. Now, the YSL and ANC Youth League president issue is an issue that they will have to sort out. Those are youth structures, okay? The two structures, the youth structures, the YCL and the ANC Youth League must meet and sort that thing out. What is not helpful is to have a public spect over Blade. Blade is not their minister. Both of them, both the ANC Youth League and the YCL, didn't appoint Blade as a minister of education. So it's not their business. It's not their business. It's just the issue of youth structures that listen to us discussing things and make it their business. It's not their business. They are not appointing ministers. Okay? So leave them, let them shout. And for young people, it's easy to be populist actually when there's a crisis. So our responsibility is to manage that populism.
Let me thank all of you for your time and really appreciate that you had to wait for a very long time to get this briefing. Good night.
My people, we are getting there, and thanks to you, party is set to